Welcome to Farm Connections. I'm your host, Dan Hoffman. Norman Borlaug was born on a small farm near Cresco, Iowa. He went on to make an enormous impact on agriculture and is considered the father of the Green Revolution. On today's show, we visit with his daughter, Jeannie Borlaug Laube, about his legacy. Steve Diebele describes his pastured pork model, and Lynn Ketelsen reports on the use of bioreactors to treat farm drainage water. Stay with us. Farm Connections is next.
Welcome to Farm Connections with your host, Dan Hoffman.
Farm Connections, sponsored by Alcorn Clean Fuel, a farmer-owned cooperative in Claremont, Minnesota, produces ethanol, high-protein livestock feed, and corn oil, and beverage-grade carbon dioxide for resale to benefit its members and their communities. Absolute Energy, a locally owned facility, produces 115 million gallons of ethanol annually, proudly supporting local economies in Iowa and Minnesota. Absolute Energy, adding value to the neighborhood. Prow Company, a hands-on commercial property leasing company. Leasing commercial properties in Rochester, Minnesota since 1952. Realtors and brokers welcome. Prow Company.
With me today is Steve Diebele from Kiel, Wisconsin and the Golden Bear Farm. Welcome.
Thank you. I'm pleased to be here.
Well, we're glad to have you because we want to hear all about Golden Bear Farms. What do you do on this farm?
Well, we pasture-raise our cattle, and we pasture-raise also pigs, which is a very unique thing. And we've been doing that for about 10 years now.
10 years of raising pigs and beef on pasture. What's been the highlight of that 10 years?
The continued growth, actually, the growth in terms of numbers of animals, doing things better each year, getting better productivity, seeing improvements in how we're handling the animals, how we're understanding them better, and just becoming more efficient and seeing improvements in the land as we go, I think.
Well, that's pretty neat stuff. And when you talk about productivity improving, do you mean like rate of gain?
Rates of gain, pounds produced per acre, the quality of the foods as well, with the forages that we're getting, seeing exciting changes with our beef and pork, with how are they finishing out, are we seeing better marbling, are we hearing more compliments with the tenderness of the meat or the tastes of the meat, that kind of thing.
You probably have a nice warm place to go home to in the winter after you're done working in the pastures. What about the pigs?
They have a warm place too, but it's not on the pasture. During the grazing season, let's say from May through till the very beginning of November, they do pretty well out on the pasture as long as they've got some shade and some kind of protection against cold, wet weather. But when you start having the snow fly, then it's time that we bring the pigs back to the barn and we allow them access to the barnyard and encourage that. So we rotate groups on a very regular basis out, that they get fresh air, that they're out seeing the sun. And you may not know it, but they actually get the benefits of the sunshine for generating their vitamin D, just like people do. So that's a big deal for the value of the pork as well.
Well, that takes care of 6 months or so if they're pasturing. When they come into that farmyard or come into the barn, what's that like? I mean, do they have a comfortable stall? Do they have something to eat in there? Where's the pasture? What do they get for food?
Well, even when they're on pasture, they get a little bit of they get a grain ration that's available to them, and we continue that while they're in the barn in winter. But in the winter, the fall, and throughout the deep part of winter and all, we bring literally tens of thousands of pounds of apples to the farm that we get. We work with several of our local orchards to get this. These are casts off from the orchard, although many of them really are as good in quality as what you get at any grocery store, and I'm really serious about that. And we also get lots of pumpkins from area pumpkin farms. And so on a daily basis, we're offering that to them, a couple pounds of those things every day per pig. But we also offer them quite a bit of the bedding, grass bedding that they can play with, but they also tend to eat a bunch of that as well. So it's a big deal.
Sounds very interesting. I'm guessing that helps the economic kind of community in your area because you're buying a product that would maybe go into the waste stream?
Well, actually that really, I think, has been a big deal with working with our orchards. We've been able to get some products from them that otherwise would not have been harvested. They go through mid-October, they look at what they have in their sales and what they have left on the trees, and by us buying these apples, albeit at a much lower price, we at least guarantee them they'll get their picking costs. But on top of it, we allow them a window of extra time for them to direct market those apples if they can. And we also buy apple cider vinegar from them, which is a new product for the orchard, one of the orchards that we're dealing with. That really has been a feather in their hat.
Nice. What happens to what's left over in the barn after the pigs eat the hay and the apples? Is there something left?
Well, we're looking at doing a barn expansion where we could use machines to move some of that stuff up, but right now we're using our wheelbarrows to haul out all this manure and waste bedding, and then we, over the course of the next several months, we'll go and compost that. We mound it, and on a routine basis we'll go and aerate that. And when we get done with that, we will have what looks like dirt. I mean, it is truly without odor. When you spread that on pastures, it's an incredible wake-up call for the plants. It really does an amazing fertility improvement.
So soil tilth is improving?
By far, leaps and bounds, leaps and bounds.
Nice. Well, what's the product that you're really selling in the retail market? Is it beef? Is it pork? Is it both?
We're selling both, although we're expanding quite a bit with the pork. The beef would require more land base, and given what we have from a business standpoint, we want to expand more with the pork and continue to until we hit about 1,000 pigs per year production, and still be able to have them out on the pasture and do that quality of life and quality of product.
Well, 1,000 head, that sounds like a lot. How do you handle that and move them through the property?
We would, 1,000 head a year is what we would be producing at any one time, because pigs grow so fast. We really only have on the farm at one time about half that number, or 500. And by having groups of 40 to 80 pigs at a time, we're able to have a manageable number of groups on the farm and still yet offer the pigs a very nice environment and not sacrifice on the quality of life for the pig or on the quality of the meat that's produced. So we're trying.
What breeds do you have on your farm?
We are raising Berkshires, and they're really a very interesting breed. It's an old heritage breed from England. It's a colored breed, meaning that they are basically a dark pig, and they are less susceptible to sunburn, whereas the white or pink-skinned pigs are much more susceptible to sunburn. So Yorkshires and Landrace are two prime examples of those pigs that we'd be a little bit nervous of being out in the sun so much. But as a colored breed, that's what we were looking for. And among the colored breeds, the Berks are really known for having a great food meat quality, the marbling, the tenderness, the juiciness of the meat.
So that pork product goes into the grocery store, high-end restaurants. Where is it actually served?
Well, actually, a number of places. We're going into more and more groceries, a lot of grocery cooperatives, and also health food stores. But also we have a number of high-end restaurants that have been using our meat for years with it. We also support quite a few people that are, individual families that are looking out for the health of their family, or they're interested in the welfare of animals, or there's some reason that they choose to come to us.
What's different about your product than, say, mainstream products? Is there anything omega-3s or anything that's different?
Well, we have chosen to feed our pigs specifically a non-corn and non-soy diet. We're really excited about the pigs being on pasture, on being able to eat grass, clover, alfalfa, any kinds of fruits or vegetables, because those kinds of foods are what have high amounts of omega-3 fatty acids. And everyone needs that in their life. They have to get it from what they eat. But corn particularly is really weak in omega-3 fatty acid, and it's very high in omega-6 fatty acid, which we also need, but not in the volumes that corn offers. So by going to having the animals on the pasture, we allow them to eat quite a bit more of feeds that are high in omega-3 fatty acids, which are known to be very heart healthy and actually cancer preventive. And we are then able to manage the amount of omega-6 that ends up in their diet. And everyone needs omega-6 fatty acids, but not in the high volumes that are in corn itself.
Steve, this is fascinating. It's very interesting, the lifestyle that you've carved out for yourself and your wife. And thanks for coming back to the Midwest.
My pleasure. I enjoyed being here.
Stay tuned for more on Farm Connections.
Thanks, Dan. Agriculture issues receive very little attention during the 2016 presidential and congressional elections. However, there are many issues at the national level that are very important to farm operators and the ag industry in the coming years. Key issues include farm profitability concerns, the current Farm Bill, approval of the trade promotion, Trans-Pacific Trade Promotion Agreement, and other trade issues, and the future of renewable energy. Many of these issues will be debated in Congress and addressed by the new administration in the next year. The financial challenges facing crop and livestock farmers across the U.S. and the low profit margins in farming are in the mind of everyone involved in agriculture. Profit margins in both the crop and livestock sectors are at the tightest levels in many years, and for many producers are projected at a negative level for 2016 and 17. The safety net provided by the current Farm Bill may not provide adequate income security for many farm operators. Due to the concerns with the current Farm Bill, some members of Congress and farm organization leaders are calling for either adjustments to the current Farm Bill or to write a new Farm Bill before the current legislation expires with the 2018 crop year. There's a lot of concern over the county-based Ag Risk Coverage, or ARC County program, farm option that over 90% of the farmers are enrolled in. The payments in this program option can vary widely from county to county due to the payment formula. There's also concern with the Dairy Margin Protection Program and the reduced level of the Maximum Conservation Reserve Program, or CRP, acres that are allowed under the current Farm Bill. The Trans-Pacific Partnership, or TPP, trade agreement, if approved by Congress and signed by the President, has the potential to open up U.S. trading possibilities with a wider range of Asian countries on more goods and services. Most observers estimate that the agriculture industry would be a winner from the TPP agreement over the next several years if the agreement is approved, with increased export markets for corn, wheat, soybeans, and pork. Final approval of the agreement is still very questionable at this point. Future federal policy for renewable energy is a major concern for many farm operators, ag and rural community leaders, as well as investors in renewable energy plants. Many states in the upper Midwest have a very strong and well-established corn-based ethanol industry, which utilizes over 35% of the corn produced each year in the United States. There has also been a growing biodiesel industry that uses a significant amount of soybeans each year. Even with all the economic, environmental, and community benefits of renewable energy, many special interest groups are calling for reductions or eliminations of the federal renewable standards and other measures that would hurt the renewable fuel industry. These issues, along with environmental regulation, rural health care, immigration reform, and other issues, could have a major impact on farm families and rural communities in the coming years. So even though agriculture and rural communities draw very little attention during the election cycle, the decisions made by those elected officials could greatly impact the future of those involved. This has been Kent Thiesse, and we'll talk to you next time.
Thanks for joining us on Farm Connections. And with us today is Jeannie Borlaug Laube. Welcome, Jeannie.
Thank you.
So Jeannie, you're giving a presentation to the St. Charles FFA and some other young people from southeast Minnesota. What's your impression so far?
My impression so far is that they're a wonderful group of young people that are going to make a difference in the future of our country and all of their lives.
Well, they were honored, and I visited with some of them about being in front of you to hear what you had to say, talking about Norman Borlaug, your father, and of course his awards. And he was a modest guy, but tell me about some of those awards.
He is one of 3 Americans to have ever won the Nobel Peace Prize, the Congressional Gold Medal, and the Medal of Freedom. Elie Wiesel was one of the other Americans, and also Martin Luther King. So he is in a very prestigious group there. He was very modest. He really never talked about his awards. He would just bring them home and throw them on the table, and my mom would put them away. So we never flaunted any of his awards. I think he was doing what he wanted to do to help the starving people of the world.
Well, it's so noble and wonderful that you're carrying on the legacy and sharing with people. What motivates you to do that?
I think to continue his legacy, it's such an important part of feeding the world, which is what he wanted no child to go to bed hungry. And there are many scientists all over the world, universities, high schools, educating people to go out and do the same thing that he had done. It takes an army. It's just not one person that can do this.
Well, he certainly was at the forefront, and he grew up in rural Cresco, Iowa, and he also attended a major university in Minnesota. Can you tell us about that experience, why he chose that university?
He, as you said, was raised in a small farm near Cresco, Iowa, a 100-acre farm. He knew that he was going to go to college. He would be the first one in his family to attend college. He was supposed to go to Iowa Teachers College, and one of his friends from Cresco came and said, "You need to go to the University of Minnesota." So he told his parents he was going to go to the University of Minnesota. He had no money. He didn't know how he was going to survive. He got up to the University of Minnesota, worked hard, serving food in a little diner and then in a sorority house, became active in wrestling at the university because he was a wrestler in Cresco. And when he was at the university his freshman year, he saw food lines, which he had never seen before. And he saw the degradation of human beings having to beg for food, the riots, and he thought, well, I want to do something about this in my life.
Well, when he was at the University of Minnesota, you said he did some research work and he worked on his doctorate. What specifically was that research?
When he was at the University of Minnesota, well, his first 2 degrees were in forestry. And then he was supposed to get a job in forestry and through the forestry department. And at that point, there were no jobs. And he went to a lecture and heard Dr. Elvin Steakman, a very famous professor at the university, speak about plant pathology and genetics. And Daddy was just taken by his lecture, went in and visited with the man, and Dr. Steakman said, well, are you interested in doing this? And Daddy goes, well, I don't know. Dr. Steakman said, well, you either are or you're not. So this was another person that was a great mentor to my dad. Had it not been for my mother's pushing, maybe he wouldn't have gone on and gotten his PhD in plant pathology. Then he went to, they moved to Delaware, and he worked for DuPont for 2 years, working in the chemical labs, helping with camouflage materials for the war. And then Rockefeller Foundation had started a program we're starting a program in Latin America to help Mexico educate their scientists to take over their own agricultural programs. So Daddy was asked to join them, and again, my mother said, okay, let's go do this. And this was in the 40s when things were not very modernized in Mexico. So I was just a baby then. We moved to Mexico, and he started his investigative work and training.
At the core of what your father did was plant genetics or breeding to get better characteristics in those plants that would yield better, resist disease. Is that common today? Is that still done?
It is very common today, and it needs to be done. With climate change, we need to be producing new types of grain, whether it's corn, wheat, barley, beans, whatever it is. Those seeds need to adjust to less water, higher climate, higher temperatures. So these plant breeders are out doing this, and it's not something that happens overnight. So we have a lot of plant breeders from across the world working together on this. And it's a collaborative effort because some things grow better in colder climates versus warmer climates. So this is a continuing thing. And one of the things that my dad conquered in the 70s was wheat rust. And he told people, by crossing different breeds of wheat, he told people rust never sleeps. And it has, in fact, come back. And UG99, which is Uganda 99, is a rust wheat which could eradicate the wheat across the world if it weren't controlled. And we have scientists right now crossing different wheats which will be rust resistant. So this goes on forever, and that's why my dad's legacy is so important, to keep current scientists doing their job, and these young people getting into science, all kinds of science fields continuing, because without food, there is no peace.
He's also been rewarded and acknowledged in the Rotunda in the DC Capitol, our capital, the U.S. Can you tell us about that quickly?
Yes, on his 100th birthday 2 years ago, the legislature and the governor of Iowa were able to achieve this wonderful honor for him by placing his statue in the rotunda of the U.S. Capitol. Now, each state can only have 2 statues in the rotunda, so there are only 100 statues throughout the whole rotunda of the United States Capitol. Daddy was placed in Statuary Hall. Iowa voted 100%, the legislature, to put him in. Had there been one dissenter, it would never have happened. Fortunate for all of us is that Daddy is in the rotunda. He's in Statuary Hall next to President Washington, Rosa Parks, Martin Luther King, and he is representing agriculture. He is the only statue in the whole rotunda of the U.S. Capitol with agriculture attached to his name.
Jeannie, what a wonderful story.
Thank you very much.
And thanks for sharing.
Thank you.
Stay tuned for more on Farm Connections.
Barely noticeable along Tom Manson's northeast Iowa cornfield are 2 metal boxes sticking out of the grass. But what lies between them is rather remarkable. The boxes mark the inlet and outlet of a bioreactor that was installed between the field and nearby Crane Creek 3 years ago. The bioreactor's purpose is to reduce the nitrates leaving the field through the tile drain water.
Water is taken from the field through tile under the ground, and typically that would just route through the ground and into a drainage ditch or into a small creek or river. What bioreactors can do is intercept that water coming through the tile lines, route it through a wood chip trench, and through the process of denitrification reduces the concentration of nitrogen and phosphorus, and we see a load reduction by about 50%.
Benning says Iowa farmers are working to address nitrogen and phosphorus loss through a nutrient reduction strategy. The goal is to reduce loss of those nutrients by 45% statewide, both from rural and urban settings. Bioreactors are one of the tools farmers are using to help meet this mark.
Farmers want to do things that are right. They're looking at it as far as how do we control our nutrient runoffs, how do we get maximum use of fertilizer for increasing yield, but at the same time be economically and ecologically responsible at the same time. So it's a delicate balance.
About 50 bioreactors are in place across Iowa, but more are in the works. Iowa State has 2 years of data measuring the level of nitrates coming out of the bioreactor on Manson's farm. So far, the results are encouraging.
We sampled it last year. We had about a 62% reduction in the amount of nitrates. This year, we're actually running above that. Don't know if we were lucky or not, but that's what it's been doing. We've been very, very pleased in what this has done, and the quality of water coming out is exceptional.
This is Lynn Ketelsen reporting.
The Upper Midwest has continuously taken the lead on exploring new farming techniques, as well as fine-tuning the best of the past. I hope you've enjoyed our time together. I'm Dan Hoffman, and I hope to see you next time on Farm Connections.